Hello, Matilda class. As we discussed in our live session last week, I'm going to read a little bit of Percy Jackson. I might not get a whole chapter read to you because some of them are quite long, but I'll read a little bit more tomorrow. Now, I've decided to go back a chapter and reread the chapter that we read before Christmas, just to recap before we move on. So they've just come out of the hotel in Las Vegas, so the hotel that captures time. They've got 1 day left of the summer solstice, so that means 1 day left to complete their quest and find Hades, the underworld, and the vault. So this chapter is called Chapter 17, We Shop for Waterbeds. It was Annabeth's idea. She loaded us into the back of a Vegas taxi as if we actually had money and told the driver, "Los Angeles, please." The cabbie sized us up. "That's 300 miles. For that, you got to pay up front." "You accept casino debit cards?" Annabeth asked. He shrugged. "Some of them. Same as credit cards. I got to swipe 'em through first." Annabeth handed him her green Lotus cash card. He looked at it skeptically. I wonder if you can find out what that word means, skeptically. "Swipe it," Annabeth invited. He did. His meter machine started rattling. The lights flashed. Finally, an infinity symbol came up next to the dollar sign. So an infinity symbol means it never ends. The money from this card is never ending. The driver looked back at us, his eyes wide. "Where to in Los Angeles, Your Highness?" "The Santa Monica Pier." Annabeth sat up a little straighter. I could tell she liked the "Your Highness" thing. "Get us there fast, and you can keep the change." Maybe she shouldn't have told him that. The cab's speedometer never dipped below 95 the whole way through the Mojave Desert. On the road, we had plenty of time to talk. I told Annabeth and Grover about my latest dream, but the details got sketchier the more I tried to remember them. The Lotus Casino seemed to have short-circuited my memory. I couldn't recall what the invisible servant's voice had sounded like, even though I was sure. I've lost my place. Sure, somebody I knew. The servant had called the monster in the pit something other than my lord. Some special name or title. "The silent one?" Annabeth suggested. "The rich one? Both of those are nicknames for Hades." "Maybe," I said, though neither sounded quite right. "That throne room sounds like Hades," Grover said. "That's the way it's usually described." I shook my head. Something's wrong. The throne room wasn't the main part of the dream. And that voice from the pit, I don't know. It just didn't feel like a god's voice. Annabeth's eyes widened. "What?" I asked. "Oh, nothing. I was just... No, it has to be Hades. Maybe he sent this thief, this invisible person, to get the Master Bolt, and something went wrong." "Like what?" I don't know," she said. "If he stole Zeus's symbol of power from Olympus and the gods were hunting him, I mean, a lot of things could go wrong. So this thief had to hide the bolt, or he lost it somehow. Anyway, he failed to bring it to Hades. That's what the voice said in your dream, right? The guy failed. That would explain that the Furies were searching for when they came after us on the bus. Maybe they thought we had retrieved the bolt." I wasn't sure what was wrong with her. She looked pale. When somebody's looking pale, how do you think they're feeling? "But if I'd already retrieved the bolt," I said, "why would I be travelling to the underworld?" "To threaten Hades," Grover suggested. "To bribe or blackmail him into getting your mum back." I whistled. "You have evil thoughts for a goat." "Why, thank you." "But the thing in the pit said it was waiting for 2 items," I said. "If the Master Bolt is one, what's the other?" Grover shook his head, clearly mystified. Annabeth was looking at me as if she knew my next question and was silently willing me not to ask it. "You have an idea what might be in that pit, don't you?" I asked her. "I mean, if it isn't Hades." "Percy, let's not talk about it, because if it isn't Hades—" "No, it has to be Hades." Wasteland rolled by. We passed a sign that said, "California State Line, 12 miles." I got the feeling I was missing one simple, critical piece of information. It was like when I stared at a common word I should know, but I couldn't make sense of it because one or two letters were floating around. The more I thought about my quest, the more I was sure that confronting Hades wasn't the real answer. There was something else going on, something even more dangerous. The problem was, we were hurtling towards the underworld at 95 miles an hour, betting that Hades had the master bolt. If we got there and found out we were wrong, we wouldn't have time to correct ourselves. The solstice deadline would pass, and war would begin. The answer is in the underworld, Annabeth assured me. You saw spirits of the dead, Percy. There's only one place that could be. We're doing the right thing. She tried to boost our morale by suggesting clever strategies for getting into the land of the dead, but my heart wasn't in it. There were just too many unknown factors. It was like cramming for a test without knowing the subject, and believe me, I'd done that enough times. The cab sped west. Every gust of wind through Death Valley sounded like a spirit of the dead. Every time the brakes hissed on an 18-wheeler, it reminded me of Echidna's reptilian voice. I wonder if you can read that word better than I can. At sunset, the taxi dropped us at the beach in Santa Monica. It looked exactly the way LA beaches do in the movies, only it smelled worse. There were carnival rides lining the pier, palm trees lining the sidewalks, homeless guys sleeping in the sand dunes, and surfer dudes waiting for the perfect wave. Grover, Annabeth, and I walked down to the edge of the surf. What now? Annabeth asked. The Pacific was turning gold in the setting sun. I thought about how long it had been since I'd stood on the beach at Montauk, on the opposite side of the country, looking out at a different sea. How could there be a God who could control all that? What did my science teacher used to say? 2/3 of the Earth's surface was covered in water. How could I be the son of someone that powerful? I stepped into the surf. Percy, Annabeth said, what are you doing? I kept walking, up to my waist, then my chest. She called after me. You know how polluted that water is? There's all kinds of toxic. That's when my head went under. I held my breath at first. It's difficult to intentionally inhale water. Finally, I couldn't stand it any more. I gasped. Sure enough, I could breathe normally. I walked down into the shoals. I shouldn't have been able to see through the murk, but somehow I could tell where everything was. I could sense the rolling texture of the bottom. I could make out sand dollar colonies dotting the sandbars. I could even see the currents, warm and cold, steams swirling together. I felt something rub against my leg. I looked down and almost shot out of the water like a ballistic missile. Sliding along beside me was a 2-meter long mako shark. But the thing wasn't attacking. It was nuzzling me. Heeling like a dog, tentatively I touched its dorsal fin. It bucked a little, as if inviting me to hold tighter. I grabbed the fin with both hands. I wonder what's going to happen with this shark and Percy under the water. We're not going to find out today. I will carry on reading the rest of this chapter tomorrow. Hope that was okay. Hope you're enjoying the rest of Percy Jackson, and hopefully we can get it finished.